decided to do as we start into this new phase of these long-term lectures is to go back and just do a little review of Bhumi One. So I'm calling it Living in Bhumi One. And it's I think, a correct title. Living in Bhumi One means when you do one of the things which the sutra calls upon you to do, at that moment you are living in Bhumi One. We experience Bhumi One in our lives. You can have Bhumi One at any time when you deal with some of the issues that I will take out from the sutra itself. So let's start now with in Bhumi One, it says, we take compassion as foremost and wisdom as primary, and we adopt skillful means in accord with them. I think that's just a moment, let me go. So when we think of compassion, I feel that the epitome of this part of the sutra was the actions of Master Xing Yun. Of all the people I knew, it seemed to me that he took compassion and wisdom as the primary parts of his life, and that he had skillful means in using them. In other words, what this tells us all is we need to have compassion and we need wisdom. However, we also need to be dealing with them in a skillful fashion. I know that compassion, in a sense, means being able to relate to suffering, to discomfort. And wisdom means for me a deep understanding of that suffering, that discomfort. We've heard, of course, in the past about compassion fatigue. Those people who find that compassion becomes just too much. But I think when you combine compassion and wisdom, and I believe that they're inseparable, I don't think that you can have compassion without wisdom, not in the Buddhist sense. And I don't think that you can have wisdom without compassion either. They are inseparable. So these are abilities. They are abilities which we need to cultivate. And they are abilities which we have the ability to cultivate. That's why being and living in Bhumi One is possible for us. It's possible for us at this very moment to have the experience of living in Bhumi One. So I believe that the big issue here will be having self-encouragement, if I may. Be self-encouraged to take compassion and wisdom as major parts of our lives and to be skillful in using them. Then the sutra says that we should being possessed of resolute faith and purified intentions, we can avail ourselves of the Buddha's power. Buddhism, in many ways, is a religion of intention. That is, that everything we do is preceded by the intention behind it. And if we have the intention to live by the material that we find in this sutra, that intention is, in fact, like faith. That is faith that we can do this. I couldn't help but think about when my wife was in her last days, and it was very hard for us. And we were trying to deal with her pain and her suffering. And she took my hand and said to me, "We can do this." And that moment, I knew I could, and we did it. So we need to have expectations. We need to have, in a sense, self-fulfilling expectations. When I was very ill and I was bedfast and I couldn't walk and I couldn't get out of bed, I had to learn to walk again. But I look back and I think one of the things which helped me is that I had the expectation I can walk. I'm going to get up out of here. I'm going to do this. I had faith. I had faith that I could once again return to the world without some of the weakness and the illness that beset me. So I think at the moment when we are possessed with an intention to do something, at that moment you're in Bhumi One. You're experiencing Bhumi One. And so the measureless power of the Buddha is again something which I think we saw so vividly expressed in the life of Master Xingyun, that he lived by availing himself of the Buddha's measureless power. So when I say that Buddhism is a religion of intention, I hope that you understand that that means it's a religion of faith. I intend, I believe, I think, I know that something can occur. And so I live my life according to that. The sutra then goes on to tell us that we can directly manifest unimpeded knowledge, which means we can have true understanding of what's going on in the world. We don't have any barrier to our understanding. And the next thing is quite interesting to me. I had not expected to find this sentence in the sutra, and I had to think about it for quite a while. The sentence says, to bring forth spontaneous understanding, not reliant on others. And I kept thinking about that because we feel that we do need help. We do need people to give us support. We don't want to be isolated. We don't want to isolate ourselves. But what I think this is saying to us is that we do not give to others the power to determine how we feel and how we act. That we must eventually bring forth an understanding which is ours, which we live, which is real to us. It's not borrowed. It's not just thought. It's lived. And when we live this life, then I think that's what it means by saying that we're not relying on others, but neither are we isolated by ourselves. We have the help, but we have to deal with the knowledge of how to take and deal with the help that we receive. So the next tells us that we abandon disputatiousness. We abandon arguing. We abandon hatred. And the text says we become humble, respectful, and straightforward in character. Just those words, aren't they encouraging to us? To become humble, respectful, and straightforward in character. Don't we want to meet somebody who's like that? Don't we want to see that in action? So we learn how to deal with this. Anger results from pain. Pain is what causes us anger. And so we have to begin to understand, what is it that's operating when I dispute, when I'm disliking somebody, when I feel negative thoughts? What really is going on? And that's what we must always be trying to deal with as we come into the teaching of this sutra. So when you gain entry into Bhumi One, what happens to you? It says you right away give up fear. And what is the fear? The fear is a fear of that I won't survive. And of course, often that means I fear death. I also fear that people will think bad of me, think less of me. And I fear what the future is going to bring, whether it's rebirth or just what's coming tomorrow. I fear the future. And the other is an interesting one, the fear of speaking or appearing before a large audience. I didn't realize that this in psychology is an illness. It's an actual illness to fear to stand up and speak in front of people. And it's called glossophobia. Glossophobia means I have a phobia, I have a fear of speaking. And why do I fear to speak? I fear to speak because I'm afraid I will be judged, that my speaking will not be good enough, that I will appear in a bad light. I fear that the people who are out there in the audience will judge me. I fear that I will be dealing with shame and regret because I wasn't good enough when I spoke. I look back and think, oh, I could have done so much better. Why didn't I say something that was more significant? So we have to let go of control. The problem with fear is we are fearful, and when we're fearful, we try to control things. In my present state, I still have trouble standing up and transferring from my wheelchair to a walker. And there is just this little moment between standing up when I leave behind the safety of the wheelchair and I don't yet have the safety of the walker. And that little single moment at times can cause me to have fear. But I think that we have to let go of the idea of control. We have to begin to understand that even if I have a weakness, that my weakness can become a strength. And one of the ways to make a weakness a strength is to admit to it. So that's why I've been trying to do that. I talk to you too much, perhaps, about my illness, about my weakness, my old age. But that's my weakness. And I want to confess to you that I have those weaknesses. I don't want to hide and make you think that I'm anything other than what I am. And just by sharing that with you, it makes me feel so much stronger because I don't have anything that I'm hiding from you. The minute I feel I'm hiding something, it's very tiring, and it causes me a great deal of discomfort. So what you want to do is to single-mindedly seek to acquire the Buddha's knowledge and to focus on maintaining undistracted mindfulness. So we understand these thoughts. We understand that there are times when we have to focus our attention somewhere else other than where it is at the moment. And how do I change my focus? How do I move that focus to something else? Because we understand that what we focus on becomes bigger and bigger in our lives. When I was interviewed for Psychology Today about being in rehab for 5 months. I said, one of the biggest problems is that if you don't watch it, little things become so big. And if they can't find your toothbrush, you're in a sweat and complaining, and life is meaningless. And then you think, what's happening to me? That I let this little thing take over and dominate me. But we have to figure out how to use mindfulness. Now, focusing on illness does not bring health. It doesn't, it in itself does not bring health. But focusing on something means that if we focus on it, it grows bigger and bigger. Just like when I focused on no toothbrush, it got bigger and bigger and more important. So what are we focusing on? Where is our undistracted mindfulness? Wherever that is, that's the part in our life which will grow bigger. So if we focus on the knowledge of the Buddha, if we focus on compassion, if we focus on the things that we think are important, they will become larger, they will grow, and we can do that. And when we do that, when we're focusing on them, we are in Bhumi One. That's when we are in Bhumi One. Next, we're told, cultivate the perfections, the perfection of wisdom, the perfection of vigor, the perfection of all the things that we like to do, and abandon flattery, falseness, and deception. As an old man, I can tell you that sometimes people try to make me feel good by saying, well, you don't look your age, you don't look bad, you look better. And, you're looking better. This is looking better than what? Well, looking better. And it's nice that people try to do that. I'm not complaining about it, except to say what we really want is honesty. So if you want to speak to somebody in honesty, how do you do it? How do you honestly tell somebody something? It means that you must focus on what is really the case. So if I want to tell somebody what they look like, I need to focus on what they look like. I really need to look at them. And if I want to tell them what's really the case, then that's what is asked for here. I've come to dislike a lot of book reviews. And the reason that I don't like a lot of book reviews is that book reviewers sometimes feel that what they should do is to focus their attention on what's wrong with a book. And they never tell you what's right with it. But the book was written by somebody who spent a lot of time doing it. And I want to say to the book reviewers, tell me what this person was really trying to say. So if there are problems, okay, you can certainly point out the problems. But before you point out the problems, tell me what's right. If I see what's right with the book, and then you tell me what the problems are, I can decide if those problems make it worth my while to think about, or if those problems are insignificant compared to the contribution which is being made by the author, who has given something that's very wonderful and great for us to know. So honesty sometimes reveals the beautiful and wonderful truth of life. Honesty isn't just that we see the bad. Honesty is being truthful in terms of both saying what maybe the person wants to hear or what they don't want to hear. But if we're honest, if people are honest with you, it gives that a dimension of growth, wisdom, and compassion. Then we come to a section which I think expresses one of the most crucial parts of the Buddhist teaching. If there were an end to empty space or beings or an end to worlds, if there were, I think that Buddhism has from the very beginning been a teaching of endlessness. There's no end to space. There's no end to the worlds. And because there's no end, it means that we ourselves have to ask the question of, what does this mean for me to live in endlessness? I think we do live in it. We don't like to think about it because we can't think about it. We cannot think about something that has no end, not really. But we know, even if we can't think it, we do at some level know that there is no end to space. Space just doesn't stop somewhere out there. It's endless. And so when we speak of emptiness and the whole side of Buddhism where there is an endless array of Buddhas and there's any number of endless lights that gleam, it's hard for us to understand why this is said. But I believe that Buddhism is a religion of intention. And I think it is a religion of endlessness. And that if we can come to grips with those two things, we have come to grips with some of the most basic parts of the Buddhist teaching and the sutras that teach it. So if there was an end to worlds, then my vows might come to an end. In other words, if I vow to save all beings, do I stop? When does that vow end? There's no point at which things can end. And it's the case with what we do with vows in the Buddhist tradition. We can't come to the end of them. There is no way to end it. So we need to constantly remember that we are urged and taught to keep on working with our vows. And we let them flourish. We're kindly and we're mindful. Kindness is something which people have, I think, all of us have some trouble understanding. What is kindness? We know, for example, that there is discomfort. We know that people suffer. And how can we be kind to those people? What does it mean to be kind? I think, first of all, kindness means you do something without any expectation of a return. If you expect it to have some return, then I don't think it's true kindness. I have to say that I had a relative, whenever she sent a gift, she demanded a thank you note, and a thank you letter. You had to write it. If you didn't write it, you would get a letter saying, well, why haven't you sent me a thank you note? And I think it was because she demanded a thank you note that there was almost no kindness in the gift. The gift was something given in order to receive something. And feeling that, we were resistant when it was hard for us to write those thank you notes. Science has been working with kindness. And in neurology, when people feel kindness towards somebody, they produce enzymes which reduce the stress enzymes in our brains. Kindness allows us to deal with life without so much stress. Kindness is a real thing. It's not just something that we talk about, but it has no physical element to it. It's physical as well as mental. Mental is physical too, really. What the brain does and the way in which the brain activates parts of the body, those are very important parts of the way in which we live. So in Bhumi One, we have kind thoughts, no response needed. We don't expect anything. It's like with a baby. If you're kind to a baby, usually we don't expect anything back from the baby. If we do, we're going to be disappointed, I think. The baby may not act exactly the way we want them to act. If we have a demand and we think this is what I expect if I do this, and you don't get it, then your act is thrown away. It didn't result in what you expected. So we must be kind without asking for anything back. And can we do it? Be honest with yourself in this respect. There are some times where I cannot be kind yet, not yet. I have that on my refrigerator sometimes, not yet. I'm not yet there. But I think that we need to understand that kindness does ask something of me. If someone is kind to me, and many people are, I am so fortunate. I just cannot believe how kind people are to me in so many ways. And the only thing I can do is to show my gratitude, to be grateful. And I am. That kindness allows me to have a very good life, a life that is far better than I ever expected to have at my age and with my health conditions. I have a good life. And I'm really grateful to all those people who show me kindness, and they show me kindness. And without exception, so far, the people who have shown me kindness, I don't feel they're asking something of me. And sometimes I say, I don't know what I did to deserve this. What can I do to deserve this? And it's like, no, that's not what kindness is all about. I fail to understand it if I think to myself, now how can I repay this kindness? The kindness that is being expressed is, that's it. At that moment, in Bhumi One, kindness comes to me, and I should feel gratitude and have the feeling of gratitude that I have that kindness. So I really have become a strong um, supporter of kindness. So the Bodhisattva always says, as for these suffering beings, I should now rescue and liberate them. I think you know that I did a lot of prison visitation. And during my prison visitation, I had to come to grips with the fact that the people who I worked with, the prisoners, the inmates in high security prisons, many of them in there for a lifetime sentence, they were never going to be liberated. They were in there for the rest of their life. And that's why at least in the US, the highest rate of suicide in any part of our society are 20-year-old men who are in prison for life and long sentences. They can't take it. They can't get liberation, and they commit suicide. And yet, when I worked with the prisoners, many of them became liberated. They started meditating. It was their own doing, not mine. They started meditating. And as they meditated, their focus changed from, I've got to get out of here. I can't stand this place, to beginning to think, what can I do in this place? What good can I do? Can I help others? And many of the prisoners that we worked with in the mindfulness, and not just very little by myself, but people like Venerable D, who's also on the faculty at US, who still does a wonderful job of prison visitation. The people that began to give up the focus on getting out of prison and just began to live their life of helping others, they're truly liberated. I see that in them. They have liberation. And in that sense, as one of them said, I want to become a prison bodhisattva. And I said to him, that's good. The Buddhist texts say a bodhisattva should appear anywhere, in prisons, in hell, in bad places, and in good places. Then they are able to relinquish absolutely everything. And yet they don't regret a single thing. It's very hard to do this one. You get a new car, beautiful new car. You're so proud of it. You don't want to relinquish it. You're not going to give it away. And yet you have to know that that new car is going to eventually become an old car. You have to know that that new car might actually be in a wreck and be totally destroyed. Can you be ready when that moment comes to say, I'm not distressed by this. It was to be expected. It was part of the way in which life is. So the time comes as you age when you have to relinquish things that you did. For example, I have relinquished the idea of travel. I have friends who are traveling, and I have one friend that I really appreciate. She travels a lot, all over in wonderful places, and she sends me daily pictures of what she's experiencing. And I'm traveling with her. I've had to give up travel. And can I give it up without distress or regret? How do you do that? It means I have to think of the things I can do. The minute I begin to think of things I can do, I feel so much better. So one of the things that I can do is to teach this class. This is one of the things I can do. So I should do it. And by doing it, I recognize what I can do and recognize that I can't be with you in person. I can't travel to Taiwan, I think, anymore. I can't do long trips. I can't come to you. So I'm here. You see the leaves behind me. That's a fake background. I'm in my bedroom at my house here at the temple, at Shilai Temple. The kindness of the people at Shilai Temple to take care of me. I don't know what I did to deserve it, I say. And they tell me, you don't owe us anything. You don't owe us a thing. You've already done it. So we have to be able to relinquish absolutely everything without regret if the time comes and we can't hold on to it. Because if you can't give up everything and keep on living your life, then life becomes a series of losses that make it unpleasant to be alive. When I let go of it, when I just let go. Well, talking about new cars, some years ago, I had a car I liked very, very much. But one morning it wouldn't start. And so the tow truck came and he couldn't start it. And so he said, I'm going to have to tow it back and he towed it up my driveway, which was rather steep, and he didn't hook it properly. And as I looked at it, I couldn't believe my eyes. There was my car that I liked so much rolling down the mountainside and smashing into a tree and being totally destroyed right before my eyes. And it reminded me when I looked at it, you got to be ready for this. It can happen. You can lose it. No matter what it is you have, you can lose it. And you have to be ready to understand that you can take the loss without distress, without so much regret. And then it tells us that we must strive to study the different scriptures. Well, that's what you're doing. These are the words that I've been putting up, come from the sutras. So while you're here and while we're here, we are pursuing the study of these sutras, and we are in and living in Bhumi One as we do so. That's what it means to live in Bhumi One. I've always felt that every time I think, I don't know what to say, I don't have anything new. I've told all my stories. Everybody has heard everything that I know. What more is there? If I go and turn to a sutra and start to read it, I suddenly realize how much I don't know, how much I need to know, how much there is for me to do, how much I should change my focus, how much I should allow my focus to keep me present in the world without regrets. And so those who do this they can comprehend the meaning of things, and they're able to adapt to the world in implementing their practices. And again, I think of Master Xingyun. He was able to skillfully comprehend the meaning and the import of the Buddhist teaching and to adapt it to the world and to establish temples and study centers and universities all around the world. He was living in Bhumi One at all times, I think, in his life as he did these things. And all of us can, to some degree, do this. The world is changing very rapidly. We have artificial intelligence, and I'm still not sure what artificial intelligence means to me and to my life, but I know that it's going to change the world in which I live, and that I must be able and must try my best to comprehend the meaning of artificial intelligence, to understand the impact that it's going to make, its import, and that I need to see how it is adapted to the world in implementing whatever it is that we do. It's a great challenge. And I'm going to, of course, try to teach a class this fall on AI and Buddhist studies. I invite any of you who want to take it just to contact US and audit or just take it for credit if you want. But I can't do it myself. I have to ask Alex Ames from Google. I have to ask Howie Land from Berkeley. I have to ask Venerable Miaoguang, Venerable Jie from Hoguanshan. I have to ask all of them to come and help me understand what this new world is and what this new computer power can do and how can we use it. When AI came along, some people said, don't touch it, destroy it, make sure it doesn't survive. It doesn't have any value. But you can't do that. You cannot just discard technology. When listen to the former CEO of Google, he said, technology is the future. And you must have some way to deal with technology or you get left behind. So I think that the sutra tells us we must be able to take and skillfully comprehend to the degree that we can the meaning and the import of things that are happening and how they are implemented in this world. And if we do this, the promise, the roots of goodness become even more bright and pure, just as with gold when it's refined in fire. I had a relative. He was very concerned about the future. He was very worried that the currency that we currently have would become worthless. And so he went out and bought gold and silver dollars, gold coins, and he put them in lead pipes and put them in the wall of his house so that if the currency became with no value, he would have things of value of gold and silver. And then one day, one of these fires that we see so often, wildfires in California, one of those wildfires came racing across the hills and burned his house to the ground. And when we went through the ashes, we found the lead pipes, which were just molten lumps of metal. And the gold was so completely dissolved within those lead pipes that it would have cost more to extract it. It had become worthless. There was no way we could refine the gold without enormous expense. But I think that this is what we have in the Buddhist tradition, that what we want is to have in our tradition something which is so meaningful to us and so valuable that the more we deal with it, the purer and better it becomes. That the more we study a sutra, it becomes brighter, it becomes purer. It has greater meaning for us. And I hope that that's what's happening with us in this course, that we are opening up and refining out something which we can call the true gold of the Dashabhumika Sutra. Thank you very much.